If you're not eating chocolate, what's the point of having a six-pack if you can't eat chocolate,
That's a good point. All right, Greg O'Gallagher, Kinobody. You've changed your mind on a number of things when it comes down to nutrition, when it comes down to even supplementation and training. I, for one, I'm now sponsored by Taco Bell, so things have changed majorly here. No, but I wanted to turn this over to you. Like, you're known as someone that stays lean all the time, but you've done all kinds of different things, and you've been in this industry for a very long time. So there's been like multiple iterations of Greg O'Gallagher, and I'm wondering where you're at now, like where you're different now from where you were 10 years ago when you were on the scene.
Yeah, so, a lot of my key lessons have maintained. So I will get that feedback, like, Greg, you've been consistent on the fasting, the 3 workouts a week, X, Y, and Z. But I've made some nuanced changes. So the first one I would say is when that Bruce Wayne video kind of launched on the internet, and I was talking about fasting, I talked about how I'd wake up and I wouldn't eat for the first 8 hours of the day. I would do a lot. And I kind of exaggerated a bit, like some days I do 8 hours, some days I would do 6 hours or whatever, but in any case, I do prefer a shorter fast now. So what I do is I'll fast for the first 5 hours of the day. I don't do crazy long fasts anymore, just because it takes a little bit of a willpower to wake up. Let's say you wake up at 8 in the morning to go to 4 p.m. every day. It's a long fast day in, day out. So I used to do that. But I kind of realized that there's more of a middle ground that works better. So I do more of a shorter fast. And sometimes there can be sort of a compensatory effect where if you push the fast too long, you deplete willpower, and then when you eat, you can go over. So I actually kind of find that sweet spot where you get the benefits of fasting without making it too difficult, is that 5-hour fast. So for someone that wakes up at 8 in the morning going till 1 o'clock, and if you wake up the first hour and a half, no coffee, then you use that caffeine and it's sparkling water, it's very easy to fast for the first 5 hours. So I kind of recommend people go to the 4 to 6 hours is the sweet spot, as opposed to 6 to 8, which is kind of what I used to do when I was much younger. So that's kind of the first thing. It's more for kind of practicality and just longevity. Doing an 8-hour fast every day for the rest of your life is long, but a 5-hour is super easy once you adapt to it.
After today's video, there is a free 1-month trial of Creatine gummies, and they revamped their formula as well. So now each gummy has 1.5 grams of creatine and less than a gram of added sugar. And at first you're like, wait a minute, why is there added sugar? Well, creatine uptakes better with a little bit of glucose to begin with. So that's the reason here. The gummies are predominantly sweetened with allulose as their primary sweetener. So 1.5 grams of creatine per gummy. It allows you to microdose your creatine throughout the day. There is some evidence that suggests that if you space out when you take creatine throughout the day, there's less water retention that comes with it. But the bottom line is that no matter who you are, whether you're an athlete that wants some more performance, maybe you want some better sleep, or you're someone that's just looking for a cognitive benefit, creatine has its place. And I had some pretty esteemed professionals in the creatine research world come in and vouch for that in a number of videos. So I'm a big creatine fan. I personally take about 3 to 5 grams per day, and these little gummies make it quick and easy. So that link is down below for a free 1-month trial of Create gummies. It's also a lot of stress on the body too.
Yeah.
Like I've kind of come to the same thing. It's like I either, 10 years ago, same kind of thing, I would fast, do a 16 to 18, sometimes even 20-hour fast every day. And granted, it worked well for me to drop a lot of body weight, but it's like now that is too much. That's too much stress on my body. So it's like I'll either do like a 14-hour fast like almost every day, like
that's kind of what I do.
Shortish.
Yeah.
But I won't go 16 hours every day. In fact, I usually advise people not to. And it's like we're aligned on that. And then or I'll say you know what, maybe I'll only fast a few days per week and I'll push it a little bit longer those days.
Yeah, I tend to do the 14 hours. And I kind of just track it just based on me breaking the fast after waking, so 5 hours after waking, because I don't get too stressed if I finish my last meal at the exact same time every day. Sometimes I'm driving home. Like I remember when I used to do that rigid kind of structure when I was 20 years old, I would be like, I gotta get home, I gotta have my last meal, or I'll go over. So, but yeah, it tends to be around 14 hours. I find it's a sweet spot. And then yeah, once in a while you can kind of push it. I don't do any crazy long 24-hour fast. I have people ask me about doing 3-day fasts and 4-day fasts, and for the purposes of fat loss, and I tell them don't do it.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
All right, well, what's next? What else have you changed?
So you know what is interesting is when I really, most of my training for most of my lifting career, I've focused pretty much entirely on free weights, lifting barbells and dumbbells. And I steered clear of the machines. Now for the last 5 years, I do like to use machines here and there. I will kind of incorporate it into my training simply. One is if you have an injury, sometimes doing a machine feels better. If you have a little shoulder injury, sometimes doing heavy barbell or dumbbell is not as smooth and easy as doing a machine press. So that's one reason. Secondly is when you get very, very strong and you've been training for a long time, lifting up the 120-pound dumbbells just is exhausting. It's just exhausting. So you know, doing that for years and years, it's nice to just for, you know, a couple months, you know what, we're gonna take a little breather from the heavy dumbbells and we're gonna hit a little machine press. So I think that over a longer training period, it's nice to have more options in your arsenal. Instead of just doing dumbbell, barbell, okay, let's mix in the hammer press. So I do like the machine lifts, and I think that, you know, at the end of the day, if you want to build a great physique, it's helpful to be able to rotate different movements. If you plateau on the dumbbells, you go to the barbell. You plateau on barbells and dumbbells, let's spend a couple months hitting the machine lifts. So definitely with machines, you get more stabilization, there's more control. If someone only trained on machines, they're not gonna be as strong as someone that is doing free weights. So you get more transference from free weights to machines than machines to free weights. But assuming you're doing it all, I think it's valuable to mix in some machine training. And some months I will push the volume. I'll go from doing 2-3 sets to doing 4 or 5 sets. And for me to do a bit more volume, I like to do the machines just because it's less neurally demanding. It doesn't sap your central nervous system as much as doing heavy barbell, heavy dumbbell. So you can get more volume without burning yourself out. So I do see some value in mixing in some machine training. That's probably the second thing I've kind of changed my mind a little bit on. But if you're a 19, 20-year-old, I do recommend start off on the free weights, get strong on those, and then after a few years, if you want to implement the machines more, you can.
Yeah, man, it's, or like there's those days when like motivation is lower and you're like the idea of like stacking weight plates on and having to use stabilizer muscles and having to, like it takes more willpower for sure. So it's like in that same conversation of like sort of preserving your willpower, there are days when the alternative to using machines would be skipping the workout, right? Like, and I'm not gonna do that. So it's like, for me, it's like roll out of bed and be like, I'm a little tired today, but I still need to get some blood movement. I still need to work out. But you know what? I'm gonna go hit some machines today, and It's a heck of a lot better than not doing it at all.
Yeah, awesome. And and really, what's very, very important is it's inevitable. If you're lifting, if you're trying to build a great physique, at some point or another, you're gonna have a little minor injury. You're gonna have to work around it. So it's so important that a lot of guys, they have a bit of an injury and they want to push through, and they want to try and still kind of hit that same lift. You have to kind of be adaptable. And so if you have a little injury and going on the machine feels much better than doing a free weight, absolutely use the machine. You do not want to, the biggest mistake that people make, especially when they get really focused on, getting stronger, is they want to push through an injury. Something feels off and they want to push through. Don't do that. It is a big mistake. I made that mistake in my early 20s, and it always ends up setting you back further. And I actually was in, it's crazy enough, I was in London and England. I was at this gym. They had this awesome machine. It's basically like an incline bench, but it's plate loaded, and you kind of lie down and there's 2 handles loaded to plates. You can stack up 45s, and as you push, the handles come together, right? And so compare that to doing a barbell press. Barbell press, your hands are fixed, and you get a bit more chest activation. You can kind of move the handles together and bring the arms closer. You really feel in the chest. And I was like, damn, I love that machine. And it's kind of motivating because you can actually, it's a little bit easier than doing a barbell incline. So you can load on, 445s, and you're repping it out. And you feel like Batman, dude. You feel like 445s, baby. And so that machine felt awesome. So it is fun. I'd say, so one, it's good if you have injuries, you need to work around certain movements. 2, maybe you're burning out, maybe your CNS feels a little bit fried. It can be great. And maybe you want to get more volume in and exactly, so it's less demanding on your CNS. And then the final one is that after, I'm 32, I started lifting weights at 13 years old. So I've been training for effectively almost 20 years. it's important to keep training fun. You need to keep training fun. So having a little bit of variety, playing around with a new machine is fun, right? As opposed to just doing, and there's a certain point when I've gone to the point where I was lifting 140-pound incline dumbbells at 28 years old. I'm not gonna do that again. It's not in the cards for me. So trying to build strength on a new movement is fun for me, and having that variety is great. So I do kind of push the machines a little bit more now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man.
Yeah.
All right, what else have you pivoted on?
So I built a lot of my strength. I love doing the 4 to 6 rep range. I really love hitting 4 to 6 reps, shoulder press, pull-ups, bench. And now I do kind of like to kind of stay more in that 6 to 12 rep range. I like to do a bit more, build strength at a little bit more of a higher rep range. It's just less neurally demanding. You're less prone to injury than if you're going a bit heavier. So I kind of like to push the reps a little bit higher on lifts. So that's probably, it's a subtle difference, but I rarely ever will do 4 to 6 reps.
Yeah, because you used to be all about that. I remember you were like definitely like big on those like just barely out of like power training ranges.
Yeah. I was huge on that 4 to 6 reps, and it's just there's a higher likelihood for injury, and it gets pretty damn exhausting. And so I prefer to build strength in the 6 to 10 rep range, 6 to 12 rep range. I find it works well. And you know, there's not to say doing 4 to 6 is wrong. I think building like 4 to 6 is really, really good. But as you get older, I think that, you know, for the younger guys, if you want to push on the 4 to 6, it's fine. But as you get to like 28, 29, 30 plus, build your strength in the 6 to 10 rep range. I think that's kind of the move for sure.
I mean, that's also a nice sweet spot with the hypertrophy range too. You know, it's like you're kind of, and like I've always found like for hypertrophy, that staying in that 6 to 8 is a really nice spot. Like when you start getting into the 12, 15 rep range, it's like you're still in that hypertrophy zone, but I don't know, it seems to be a line of diminishing return for hypertrophy for me after like 9 reps, right? So it's like after that, it's like I'm still in the hypertrophy range, but not nearly as much as if I'm sticking in that 6 to 9 range.
Yeah, I've noticed the exact same thing. Yeah, when you're doing 10 to 15 reps, it's also, you hit plateaus faster. It's harder to really consistently increase the load. The 6 to 9 is really that sweet spot where you can consistently kind of add load and you get the correct amount of volume. And if you know, 6 to 9 can be very heavy. Like when you build some strength, 6 to 9 reps is not like, it's not lightweight. You're still going pretty heavy.
Do you count reps that much anymore, or do you just kind of know your range?
I count I'll track my workouts. I'll count my reps, and I'll try and hit like a little PR or 2, or just kind of maintain. So I do track the reps. Yeah.
I try to like, sometimes I mess around with it where I'll like I know my range. I'll be like, I'm just not going to count reps on this, or I'll do something, throw a wrench in it, and I'll like give myself a 9 or an 11. You know, we always tend to like round it to these even numbers. I'm like, if I set at 8, I'll fail at 8, but if I set it at 9, I'll fail at 9.
No, it's crazy how the mind works like that. And you always, it's funny, the mind's interesting. You're at 9, you want to get 10, right? Or you're at 7, you want to get 8. And so that's cool to kind of play around with hitting the odd numbers.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got obviously your fasting window's changed, your training's changed, your rep range has changed. What else has changed?
So, one is when I started in fitness, I felt a little bit of disdain for the fitness industry. You talk to anyone, the first question they ask you is, what supplement do I need to take? What supplement do I need to take? They didn't have their training dialed, they didn't have their nutrition dialed, they didn't have their sleep dialed. They had no idea how many calories they're consuming. They had no idea how much weight they did last time. And so I really pushed. I was like, guys, stop talking about supplements. Let's focus on the training and nutrition. That's what matters most. And I probably spent years training in my early 20s without even taking any supplements. Now, as far as the research is concerned, there are supplements that are quite helpful. The strongest I ever got was probably around 27, 28 years old, and I was using a creatine supplement, creatine, carnitine. I was taking essential amino acids before every single workout, stuff like that. The EAAs are more of a subtle benefit, but the creatine was helpful. And so I was using a pre-workout with caffeine, L-citrulline, L-theanine that really helped with focus and work capacity. So there are benefits to using supplements for training. But you know, in my early training career, I was like, you know what? Everyone's talking about supplements. You guys do not need supplements to build a great physique. I achieved that goal. I built a great physique without supplements, and I made the primary focus: how do I dial in my training for the maximum benefit? How do I dial in my nutrition to really get that leanness that I was going for? And then over the last, probably since 26 or 7 years old, I've been playing around with different supplements that have been really, really fun and interesting. And you know, one of my buddies in Toronto created a company called Examine, where they basically break down all the supplements and do they actually work for the specific benefits, because 95% of supplements that are marketed, especially years ago, didn't do. Most of them were kind of marketing bogus. Now there are some good supplements that have strong benefits, and you know, crazy enough, one of the ones that I actually developed over the last couple years is a supplement to support your testosterone production, because T production has gone down. It's fallen 40% since the 80s, which is, you know, pretty crazy. And then there's a few key minerals that support testosterone production and a few key herbs that can support that. And then it kind of gives you a little bit extra benefit. You wake up, you got the morning wood, you got more drive, more ambition. And so there are some cool supplements you can use for very specific goals, whether, you know, that's strength and power, increasing free testosterone or sex drive, different health benefits. So I've played around with a few key supplements that have benefits. But again, the number one thing is, if you want to build a great physique, the first thing to look at is your training, your nutrition, your rest, recovery. Even being hyper stressed and living in a hyper stressed state is not going to be conducive. So those are really the first key pillars, and then the smaller lever that can be helpful, but it really pays off once you have everything dialed, is supplementation.
Yeah, it's sort of that last little bit that pushes you over. And the funny thing is, it's right there in the word itself, supplement, right? It's like, you're not designed to be reliant on them. These aren't pillars, these aren't core, these are supplemental, just like the name literally implies. And I think it's so easy to just lose it with that, and then just think like, okay, I need this. Like, no, that's the little icing on the cake that kind of gets you a bit. You mentioned stress, and I just wanted to ask you, like, do you modulate your training or even your nutrition based on stress? Like, if you've got a bunch of business stress going on, like, do you titrate your training dosage? Do you do back off training because you know, hey, I'm stressed? Like, one of the things that I just have noticed, me like getting older, I noticed like, okay, my stress demand pulls from the same tank as my training demand, you know, and I need to kind of be aware of that.
You know, there's an interesting test that you can do, and it can kind of see what are your dominant hormones, and you know, one of them obviously is cortisol. I'm actually not that prone to stress.
Yeah, you seem like a chill dude.
Yeah, I don't get very stressed at all. If there's extreme things in my life, then yes, I will. But I'm not like a high anxiety, high stress type. I'm pretty damn chill. But I have those periods where I feel more so burnt out. And then I'll take usually about 4 full days, up to 5 full days of rest. I've always found that taking a full 7-8 days or 10 days, God forbid, off lifting sets you back. But 4 to 5 days, sometimes you'll take, if you're training intensely hard for months straight, you take 4 or 5 days, and you're starting to feel burnt out, you take 5 days, 4 or 5 days off training, you come back and you feel insane.
Yeah, dude, Mark Bell taught me that, man. He was just like, he was like saying the same thing. He was like, you know, Mark Bell is like someone that like knows more about my personal life than a lot of people, because he's always been like a confidant for me, someone that I can just like, and he was just like, you know what it sounds like you just need to take 4 or 5 days off of training. I'm like, what are you talking about, Mark? That was completely irrelevant to what we're talking about. He's like, just trust me. He's like, just take 4 or 5 days. That's what you need. Just go for a bunch of walks, you know. And I think I took his advice to the extent of 3 days, and that was all it took for me, right? It was just like, I'm just gonna like back off the training and go for walks for like 3 days. And like come back and like stress levels were lower, everything. I was like energized to get back into the gym, energized to like be back on the diet normally. It's there's something to be said for that.
There is, and you know what? Again, like you don't build muscle when you're in the gym training. You build, and everyone knows this. You build muscle when you're resting, recuperating, and there's a time where you just need to pull back and focus on the rest and recovery. But you know what? I've kind of developed a passion and just really researching different supplements, seeing the benefits, putting formulas together. It's been very cool. So I've actually kind of fallen in love with building sort of supplement formulas. One cool little benefit is a lot of people don't take it is pine bark extract. Pine bark extract improves blood flow, vascular health, and there was some really cool research on men suffering with mild to moderate ED. 92.5% of them that started to take pycnogenol or pine bark extract actually regain normal function. So there's the supplement rabbit hole is very, very interesting if you go down the research route. Because when I was kind of growing up in the fitness scene, we would hear all kinds of supplements, but very few of them would ever be really backed by any sort of research. So it was more of just a simple marketing game. And maybe they would have some studies that were, burn 3 times more fat. If you remember the supplement stores back in 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it would be like double muscle gains, burn 3 times more fat, and it was all this garbage, and it wasn't built in any science. So if you go down the scientific route, and actually, I'll give credit where credit's due, Examin's really cool at looking into that, then there's some very cool, and Huberman's doing a great job at going through some science and supporting some very useful supplements, then it can be very powerful. So my big thing is get your training dialed. And training also means rest and recovery. Have your nutrition dialed. And again, if the goal is just to get lean, get the deficit dialed, eat quality food, give yourself 20% to enjoy your chocolate. If you're not eating chocolate, what's the point of having a 6-pack if you can't eat chocolate,
That's a good point. Words to live by.
There's no point. So recovery, training, nutrition dialed, and then start to, test different supplements that provide benefits for you. And there's a few ones that are very beneficial for different goals. And then, it's fitness is one pillar of life. Build a great physique that's going to give yourself confidence, energy. You wake up, you stand out. But then there's other pillars that you want to focus on in life, like relationships, wealth, happiness. I try and meditate 20 minutes every day and try and have some stillness. So I like to focus on the big picture. And a lot of times people that are passionate about fitness, they just go down that rabbit hole and they get robotic. I mean, you probably know some of the fitness competitors, bodybuilder people, where they're eating out of Tupperware 6 times a day. They don't leave their house. They're in the gym twice a day, and they're missing out on so much of life. And so I try and focus on the four big pillars.
Yeah, that's super important, man. I think that's something that comes, we're both in our 30s, but something that really hits you in your 30s when you're like, oh, shoot, you know what? I got to pay attention to the rest of this. I can't be so myopic on making money or myopic on looking a certain way. At the end of the day, what is it all for anyway?
Yeah, and I was kind of sort of my motif with my brand when I started. I saw a bit of the obsession with fitness, and I saw kind of people that were sort of having pride in just being kind of robots and being isolated and just staying in and Tupperware and just gym and this is my life and no social life. They were taking a lot of pride in that. And I was kind of like, this is not it.
Yeah.
I want fitness to enrich my life. I want to feel like James Bond, be fit, lean, strong, be able to go out for dinner, socialize, and have this cool aspirational life, travel, and not be like, oh, I'm going to Europe. I'm not going to be able to stay on my fitness regimen, or I can't go out for dinner because I'm not going to be able to hit my macros. And so I want to kind of create a freedom where fitness enriches your life. It doesn't detract from your life.
Yeah. I was talking with one of my employees about that. Everyone has that friend, right? Where it's been like, oh, hey, we're going to go on this vacation. We're going to go do this. We're like, okay, well, is there a gym there? Like, come on, man. That's not, I get it. And there's one thing to be like, are there health avenues? Are there ways that I can get exercise and things like that? But it's another thing when you're like, no, I can't go because I got to go to the gym. So, well, man, with all that, where can everyone find you?
So my website is kinobody.com, Kino body, and my Instagram, where I'm very active, I'm active every day, is Grego Gallagher on Instagram. And on that point with your buddy, even if you can't go to the gym, just do something. Just put your feet up on a chair, do a few sets of push-ups, and just do something just to kind of build that positive momentum, So a lot of people can make excuses and maybe there's no gym. I'll do some bodyweight training. If my kind of rule is I'll never go more than 3 or 4 days without training. So I don't work out every day, but I'll never go more than 3 to 4. And if I'm traveling, there's no gym, I'll hit some push-ups, maybe some one-legged squats. I'll find a branch to do some pull-ups on. I'll just do something, just kind of keep that momentum.
Yeah, you can get a lot done with very little.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, right on, man. Well, thanks, brother.
Awesome.